Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
When he got back into the car, he handed her a plastic bag. She opened it and saw that it contained rubbing alcohol, Band-Aids, some purple medicine, and a bunch of other random things. She took out the bottle of alcohol and whispered to him, "Two. Thank you, too." He furrowed his brows, as if he was too lazy to say anything else. She did not dare to trouble him. She tried to apply the rubbing alcohol to her wound herself, but no matter how hard she tried, she could not wipe it properly with one hand. It would spill out from time to time, and the car was filled with the sharp smell of alcohol. Point two. She quickly opened the car window and apologized profusely. "I'm sorry, I'll just too. Forget it. Pass me the alcohol." Two. She was afraid that she would anger him again, so she did not dare to say anything more. She carefully handed the bottle of rubbing alcohol over. Point two. He took it and poured it on his slender, fair, and elegant palm. Then he pressed his hands together and rubbed, lifting his chin at her. Point two. She was a little overwhelmed by his kindness, but she still extended her injured hand. Point two. He carefully rubbed it for her, and his strength was just right. She felt a warmth in her chest. Point two. She could not help but look up at his face. It was dark, but she could see that he was frowning. Point two. She was a little confused, too. "Jean D., what exactly do you want from me?" Two. The question that had been on her mind for a long time was blurted out without thought. Point two. As soon as she said it, her entire body froze. The hand that Jean D. gave her to massage her wound paused slightly, which made her even more nervous, too. "I was bored and I wanted to raise a pet. You just fit my taste." Two. His indifferent voice sounded from beside her, and he continued to massage her even after he finished speaking. Point two. This answer was too simple, but because it was simple, she could not find any loopholes. Could it be there was really just as simple as that, too? Just because she was lucky enough to bump into him that night? Then if the person you met that night was not me, but someone else, would you have chosen them instead? Two. There was a restless eagerness in her heart, and she could not help but ask. "I don't want to make conjectures about things that cannot happen. That is unrealistic and self-indulgent. The person that night was you. Time cannot be reversed, and I cannot meet another woman. It's that simple." Two. He ended the conversation decisively with these words. Point two. She was stunned for a moment, but then she understood his logic. She couldn't help but laugh. The gloom of the night was instantly swept away. Point two. His palm became a little hot as he rubbed her wrist. He really didn't understand why women liked to ask so many strange questions. In the current circumstances, too, she was the only woman he could touch. So it was impossible for him to consider other women, but he subconsciously didn't want an AI to know too much inside information. Other than his parents, only Daniel knew the details of his allergy to women. After rubbing her wrist, he closed the lid of the rubbing alcohol. The choking smell of it in the car made him scrunch up his face in displeasure. Point two. So AI looked at his expression and could not help but smile. He saw her smiling face in the rearview mirror, and his gaze fell on her red and slightly swollen lips, too. "Turn around," he suddenly ordered. Point two. Just as she turned her head, he pinched her chin, and then his lips kissed hers. His kiss, like an animal licking a wound, wetted her little by little. Point two. Her heartbeat gradually accelerated, and her breathing became rapid, just when she was feeling a little emotional, too. Jean D. suddenly opened his mouth and gave her mouth a fierce bite, too. A metallic smell spread from her lips. She was in extreme pain, but he did not show her any mercy at all. He pinched her chin hard with an overbearing look. Point two. "Next time, if you let another man touch this, see if I will still let you off so easily." Two. She lowered her head with some grievance. I just didn't expect that he would already be coming on so strong after so many years of us not seeing each other." Two. A man and a woman going out to look at the stars alone in the middle of the night. "You must know it's not right for you to behave in this way," he said sharply. Point two. She was unhappy. "Mo shouting, and I used to be good friends. I treated him like a little brother in high school." "How can you say that, too?" "Oh, a little brother, huh? In the eyes of men, all women who are not blood-related are fair game. Would he confess his feelings for you if he saw you as his sister? Would he kiss you, too? His tone grew more and more annoyed as he spoke. Point two. It was true that she was in the wrong. She knew it, but Jean D never took other people's feelings into account when he spoke. She pursed her lips, and her eyes turned red, but she did not say a word as she listened to him. Point two. Jean D raised his eyes and looked at her aggrieved look in the rearview mirror. His hand on the steering wheel moved, and the expression on his face was ugly. Point two. But he did not say anything. He felt too annoyed. Point two. The car was quiet for a while. She got her emotions under control and raised her head. She glanced at Jean D, who was in the driver's seat, and whispered, "Too. I know. I won't have any contact with him in the future." Too. After she calmed down and thought about it, she realized that if it wasn't for today, she wouldn't have realized that Jean D was actually quite good to her. Point two. Although his methods were a little forceful, in fact, when it really involved her self-esteem and will, he had never forced himself on her. Point two. Today, Mo's shouting had truly made her feel fear. Point two. If it weren't for Jean D's appearance, she wouldn't even dare to think about what Mo's shouting would have done to her. Point two. Perhaps Jean D really did have evil intentions and would do anything to achieve his goal. Point two. But at least he wasn't like Chen Zi and Mo shouting, who ignored what she wanted and made her look so unbearable in everyone's eyes. Point two. Hearing this, Jean D's expression softened, but he did not look at her. He directly started the car and went on the road. Point two. After driving for a while, she realized that this was not the way back to the other restaurant. She wanted to ask, but did not dare to say anything. Point two. Jean D seemed to see through her worries and said lightly, "Let's go eat something together before we go back." Two. She was a little surprised. "You haven't eaten dinner yet?" Two. Jean D's biological clock was very regular. Today, because he was going to inspect the observation tower, he hadn't had any time to eat. Point two. If he did not eat, he would have low blood sugar, and if he had low blood sugar, he would be in a bad mood. No wonder he had such a bad temper today. She suddenly remembered that she had watched a drama before where male lead had a bad temper, and the other characters had given him a nickname, the Demon King of Low Blood Sugar. Point two. She suddenly felt that this nickname was very suitable for Jean D, so she changed the face of Jean D and for face of the male lead in the drama in her mind. Point two. She suddenly realized that Jean D was not at all out of place in the plot of the drama. Point two. It was a funny drama. She could not help but burst into laughter when she thought of Jean D's face in it. Two. Her laughter broke the silence. Jean D threw a venomous glance at her. She immediately stopped smiling and held her breath, not even daring to breathe loudly. The Imperial Kitchen was similar to the Green Leaf, both of which were among the best restaurants in Binhai City. Point two. The chef was specially hired from the capital, and he was very particular about the ingredients, craftsmanship, and service. Jean D booked a private room for two on the way. She had already eaten with Mo shouting, so she wasn't hungry now. However, she still didn't have the courage to say no to Jean D, so she obediently followed him in. Point two. As soon as Jean D entered the courtyard, he went to the pond in the backyard to look at the seafood that had just arrived today. He seemed to have a special liking for seafood. Point two. She followed the waiter from the corridor to the private room. Just as she passed by another room, the door was open from the inside. Two. A woman in a yellow dress smiled and shouted into the room, "Hey, who says I'm running away? What's wrong with me taking a breather?" Two. So AI recognized her at first glance. It was Lin Lingwei, Zui Yunyun's female friend since high school. Point two. Because she was close to Zui Yunyun, she had hated Zui AI for years. Point two. Zui AI didn't want to interact with her, so she tried to pretend not to see her. But as she was sidestepping her and trying to pass without being noticed, Lin Lingwei suddenly reached out to grab her wrist and smiled. Point two. "Oh, who is this? Why is she so arrogant? And why didn't she greet her old classmate, too?" Conceding that she'd have to have a conversation with her, I turned around and gave Lin Lingwei a faint smile. "Oh, hi. I didn't see you. Long time no see, too." So AI was famous for being arrogant and domineering in high school. Lin Lingwei had had a crush on one or two boys in high school. But AI was so flamboyant and hot then. Her looks and figure were so good that the boys Lin Lingwell liked all like II.2. So AI was the school beauty and all of the boys' dream girl point two. Pretty girls were like that. They could be friends with the second and third most beautiful girls, but in truth, they would always be alone point two. At that time, although I didn't have any best friends, she had many male best friends by her side. She had a good life point too. The few boys that Lin Lingwell liked were all smitten by AI point two. Naturally, Lin Lingwell and the others were so jealous that they gritted their teeth whenever she walked by, but they couldn't do anything about it point two. Oh, not to worry. It's just that you're so busy and haven't seen me for a long time, Lin Lingwell said. I've been reading about you in the news every day, though. The famous AI, the #1 socialite in Binhai City. You've been very popular recently. You're always in the top 3 on the Baidu hot search list, too. It was obviously sarcastic, but there wasn't the slightest bit of annoyance on her face. The corners of her mouth rose slightly, and her tone was indifferent. Is that so? Well, thank you for caring about me enough to read about me every day, AI said with equal coolness point two. Lin Lingwei was annoyed. If it had been in the past, when the Zhou family was still powerful and influential, she would have tolerated AI's arrogance point two. But considering Zhou AI's current reputation, how dare she act like this in front of her? 2. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. Suddenly, an idea flashed across Lin Lingyue's mind, and the expression on her face changed. She walked up to her and held her hand affectionately, as if they were old friends who had not seen each other for a long time. Then, she pushed open the door to the private room point two. Isn't that right? You were always the most popular person at our high school. What a funny coincidence that we've invited a few old friends out for dinner today, and some of them are our former classmates. Speaking of which, you know them too. Come, let's have a drink and catch up before you leave, too. So AI frowned and was about to find an excuse to decline, but Lin Lingwei had already pushed her in. She frowned and looked up just in time to see Chenzi, who was sitting in the innermost seat, chatting cheerfully with the person next to him, and Zhou Yun, who was smiling sweetly beside him point two. The person beside him shouted, "Yo, what a coincidence. Z, look who's here, too." Chenzi turned his head. His smiling eyes landed on her, and he said calmly, "I thought it was some pretty girl. Turns out it's just too." Then he smiled and extended his hand to Zui Yun, who was beside him. He hooked his arm around her shoulder and smiled mockingly. "Look, your sister who has a sugar daddy is here, too." Suddenly, an awkward silence filled the room. A small business owner who had once admired AI smiled awkwardly and nudged Chenzi's arm point two. "Brother Chun, what's wrong with you? Didn't you like sister AI more than any of us in high school? Even if you broke off the engagement, you're still a family. You shouldn't say that too." Zui Yunyun's face was also a little embarrassed. "Yes, how can Z say it so directly? There's so many people sitting in this room, too." Zui Yunyun didn't deny Chun Zi's words. He was only confirming what was already written in the newspapers point two. Everyone felt embarrassed, and no one opened their mouth to ask her to sit down point two. They thought that I would just stand here looking awkward and let them humiliate her point two. But when Lin Lingwei looked up at her, I just stood there with a faint smile, as if the words of Chenzi and Zuinyan had gone in one ear and out the other point two. The elegance and indifference of her movements made them all look like clowns point two. Well, either way, we all haven't seen each other for such a long time. Since we are fated to meet here today, I would like to propose a toast to all of you. Eat well and drink well. After drinking, I should go back to my private room. Was said composedly point two. As she spoke, she walked to the service desk to get a new glass and filled it up. "Oh, private room? I wonder who the person is in the private room with you. Are they an acquaintance of ours? We're all old classmates. It wouldn't be too much to ask your friend to join us for a drink, right?" 2. Shunzi was obviously determined to fight to the death with her. The smile on her face was a little stiff. She held the wine glass as if she didn't hear what he said. "Then I'll drink this glass. Friendship is in the wine, so I won't say much, too." After saying that, She threw her head back, put down the wine glass, and turned to leave. Lin Lingyue had wanted to humiliate Zhuo Ai, but now that she saw her expressionless face, she was even angrier. Point two. In addition to this, Chenzi was trying to embarrass Zhuo Ai. Didn't this prove he didn't care about her anymore, too? Everyone here was against Zhuo Ai. Wasn't this a good time for her to take revenge, too? As soon as Zhuo Ai touched the door handle of the private room, her other hand was grabbed from behind. Lin Lingyue raised her eyebrows and laughed at her. Point two. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? We're all for Binhai City. Is your friend who's having dinner with you so shameful? 2. Zhuo Ai didn't move, nor did she turn around. Point two. Lin Lingyue thought that she must have guessed correctly. She said mockingly, "Wow, is it really like the newspapers are saying? You've hooked up with a rich old man in his 70s or 80s. It doesn't matter. We won't complain about his age. After all, he's someone you like. We'll definitely give him the time of day, too." In the past, Chenzi had held AI in high regard. Point two. No matter what anyone said, he would have risked his life for her. Point two. But now, he watched her being ridiculed without saying a word. Part of him felt as though his heart were breaking, but another part of him took pleasure in exacting his revenge. Inwardly, Chenzi was screaming, "Oh, AI, I made you betray me. I made you leave me." But outwardly, he said nothing. Point two. "See, this is what you get," he told himself. Point two. Lingyue is right. You are my ex-fiancé, and I don't even mind if he's old. Why are you still wasting time? Bring him here, he said aloud. Point two. So what AI did still love Chenzi. Point two. Even if everyone else in the room had pointed their fingers at her, she would not feel any heartache or sadness. Point two. But every time Chenzi smiled and raised his dagger to stab her too, she still felt pain. Point two. He was probably doing it in retribution. Point two. What was that saying again? 2. The person who can hurt you is the one you love most, and the love you give him is the greatest weapon he can use against you. 2. Chenzi had once given this weapon to her, and now she had given it to him. She bit her lower lip hard. The intense pain cleared her mind a little. When she turned around, her face had changed into the same indifferent expression as before, a smile that was not a smile. Point two. Miss Lin is right. He is indeed old, and his waist and legs are not good. Not to mention that his hair is white, but I still like him. There's nothing one can do when love comes. Besides, he doesn't mind that my engagement has been broken off, and he dotes on me all the time. I should count my blessings. But old people aren't in good health, and he has a chronic disease. If he comes to drink a glass of wine with us, he'll faint and fall sick. Wouldn't that cause too much trouble for everyone? 2. Her exaggerated tone made it difficult for everyone to tell whether what she said was true or not. Chunzi's face was ashen as he held his glass of wine, the veins on his forehead bulging. Point two. Her self-deprecating behavior was the most unbearable thing of all for him. Point two. She was once so proud, so arrogant. Why had she allowed herself to fall in this way? 2. So, when I abandoned you, did it break your heart so much that you can't feel anymore? He curled the corners of his lips coldly and imitated her half-true and half-false attitude, asking the question that he wanted to know the answer to the most in his heart. Point two. This was the first time since she entered this private room that she looked into Chenzi's eyes. His eyes were burning like fire, filled with anger, irritation, ridicule, and indifference, all of them warring within him, too. So AI's eyes, however, held only indifference. Other than that, there was nothing else there. Point two. Young Master Chun, you think too highly of yourself. Perhaps I was born to like old men, too. Her smile was charming, and her voice was slightly raised. His heart was burning with anger. He really wanted to get up and scold her. Why would she rather put herself in such a degrading position than just beg him to come back to her? 2. He hated her and also hated himself. So AI, you surprised me. I hadn't realized you saw me as an old man. 2. Jean D's deep voice broke into the tense atmosphere of the private room. Point two. When AI had come in, she hadn't closed the door to the private room behind her. After he spoke, a pair of elegant, white and slender hands resting on the golden handrail, pushed the door open, and Jean D entered point two. When they saw the man's full appearance, the same sentence appeared in everyone's mind. Point two. The scenery was beautiful. The gentleman was unparalleled. How could there be such a perfect man in the world? Even the men in the room were stunned by his looks, too. In Benhai City, a lot of their high school classmates were pretty good looking. In addition, it was a key high school for the aristocrats, and each family had extraordinary financial resources. Point two. They were commonly reported about in gossip magazines and newspapers. 2.2. But all of them paled in comparison the moment this man stepped through the door. Point two. Even the most outstanding looking of all of them, Chen Zi, seemed to dim with Jean D standing in the room. Point two. From the moment the man had walked into the room, his eyes had been fixed on Zhu AI. Point two. It was as if everyone else in the room was just furniture to him. Point two. He walked to Zhu AI's side and quietly put his arm around her shoulder with a faint smile on his face. Old age, poor waist and legs, gray hair, and a chronic disease, and apparently I'm 70 or 80 years old. 2. So AI blushed in his arms, her face hot. She hadn't expected him to overhear her. Point two. Actually, I was joking just now. She stammered. Point two. She didn't want to officially announce her relationship with Jean D, but she hadn't expected it to be exposed under such circumstances either. Point two. Jean D looked very gentle, and even the curve of his mouth seemed to have more warmth in it than usual. Point two. Be good, it's fine if you and I joke about these things, but if others take this joke seriously, how will I ever show my face in their presence again? 2. He sounded like a real boyfriend, and the way he looked gave him some legitimacy in the eyes of the others. This meant that he wasn't as shady as they'd thought. On the contrary, it all seemed very above board, too. She lowered her head obediently. I understand. I'm sorry, too. The arrogant AI actually lowered her head so easily to this man. 2. When they saw this, many of them opened their mouths in shock, while from Chun Zi's seat came a bang, too. He'd crushed the wine glass in his hand. Point two. Zhui Yunyan screamed in shock and quickly grabbed a napkin to wipe his wound. Point two. However, Chen Zi did not even flinch. He stared at the man beside, so AI with a gloomy face. Point two. Jean D acted as though he hadn't heard the sound of the wine glass shattering. He just bent down to tidy up the messy bangs on AI's forehead and turned around. Point two. The intimate smile that had been on his face when he faced AI just now had disappeared. Instead, it was replaced with a very official and indifferent smile. His voice was very cold. Point two. I was working late and wanted to take AI out for dinner. I didn't expect to meet her former classmates. But since we've met now, it's fate. You guys used to take care of my AI in high school. Today's meal will be my gift to you. I will inform the bar to charge it to my account. Now, and I must be leaving, too. The man spoke very politely, but there was a kind of indifference and alienation in his words. He didn't want to curry favor with this group of people. This meal was only for AI's sake. And he'd said my AI, showing his unique right of possession. Point two. This was the first time they had heard someone call AI. There's point two. Did this mean that this man really loved AI very much, too? Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Besides, I've already agreed to pay for this meal, so there's no need for you to spend money on it, too. Chen Zi's voice interrupted their footsteps. It was as if Jean D had just seen Chen Zi sitting at the table. He acted as though he'd been suddenly enlightened. I see. It seems that I've offended you, too. Chen Zi had always thought that he held a very important position in AI's heart. However, Jean D's attitude towards him was no different from the others. He was even a little indifferent, which made him angry. Point two. I believe this gentleman must not know who I am. Let me introduce myself. My surname is Chun, and my name is Zi. I am AI's previous fiancé. 2. He stood up with a faint smile on his face. Ever since Jean D had appeared in the room, every cell in Chen Zi's body had been clamoring with anger and jealousy. Point two. If he couldn't have no one could, too. No, absolutely not. Even if it tarnished AI's reputation, He wanted to make this man bear a grudge against AI. So he said, if you like her, that's fine. She's just a pair of broken shoes that I don't want anymore. Your woman is secondhand goods, too. These words should have been a fatal insult to a man. Point two. But Gene D only raised his eyebrows, and the smile on his face grew wider. Point two. Oh, so you're Chun Zi, Mr. Chun. That's good. I've always wanted to thank you in person, too. Everyone was stunned. What did this man mean, too? Chun Zi had had a close relationship with AI in the past, and now this man wanted to thank him? Was he dropped on his head as a baby? 2. If you hadn't given up on my AI, I never would have met such a good woman, too. So what AI told me that she was willful back then and made you suffer a lot. Although she tried her best to fall in love with you, you weren't her type, too. But when she met me and fell in love with me at first sight, she also understood that she wasn't good enough to you back then. Now that she's my woman, her guilt is my guilt, so I thank you on her behalf, too. You kept her company when she was at her most tender age. Thank you, too. So AI looked at the man next to her who was talking nonsense with a straight face. She actually felt a little touched after listening to this speech. Point two. Chun Zi, Yun, and the others had made her more upset than she let on. After the rain, Gene D had brought in the sun, and now she wanted to laugh. Point two. She tried her best to hold it in, but the corners of her mouth rose slightly. And at this moment, her expression naturally became the true expression of a happy little woman. Everyone could see it, too. It seemed that what this man said was true, too. Moreover, when Chun Zi chased after the AI in high school, everyone in Binhai City had known about it, too. Chun Zi had chased after the AI for many years before she agreed to be his fiancée. Point two. This was the truth. Love at first sight. Was it Zua AI who took the initiative to chase after you? Zui Yunyun asked. Chun Zi's face was livid, and he didn't speak anymore. Point two. Zua Yunyun was angry that Chun Zi's attention was attracted to Zua AI, so she blurted out a question that she knew would upset him. Point two. Although it wasn't necessarily shameful for women to chase after men, so AI's current reputation and bad record were still there. Point two. When it came to chasing after a man, others would definitely think of some very contemptible methods she may have used to win his heart. Point two. Zui Yunyun's eyes were shining as she waited for Gene D to give her the answer she wanted. Point two. Gene D looked at Zua AI beside him lovingly and said softly, too, how was that possible? Zua AI's personality is both arrogant and shy. She would never chase after anyone. Although she fell in love with me at first sight, I had already fallen in love with her long before this. In order to chase her, I had to go through a lot of hard work, too. So AI could not take it anymore and reached out to pinch his waist. Point two. This man was even better at making up stories than she was. He said nothing about stealing her little flower shop and then forcing her to sign their agreement. Point two. How'd he do it, too? As soon as Gene D had finished speaking, everyone looked at AI differently than they had before. Point two. They were full of envy, jealousy, and hatred. After walking out of the private room, Gene D immediately let go of AI's hand. Point two. The expression on his face instantly turned cold. He was angry. By now, she knew him well enough to see that. Point two. His strides were long, and she could not keep up with him. She could only trot along, afraid that he would leave her behind, all the way to their own private room. Point two. As soon as she closed the door, her arm was grabbed by him forcefully, and it was firmly fixed to the wall. 2. Her heart trembled, and she was a little flustered. Mr. Gene, what's wrong? She breathed. Point two. He did not answer, and only bored into her with his dark eyes. Then he leaned over. 2. Don't do this, 2. Through the door, she could hear the sound of the waiters walking in the corridor and the clattering of dishes. Point two. She felt like a pig's foot that was having an affair, doing something in public like this. Even she felt embarrassed. Point two. However, Gene D did not have any intention of stopping. She, too, glared at him with reddened eyes. Mr. Gene, if this is what you had in mind when you helped me just now, I'm sorry, but I can't satisfy you. I didn't ask you to help me. If you're not willing, we can go back and make things clear to all those people in there, too. His actions made her feel humiliated. She originally thought that he was a good person who was different from Chunzi and Mo shouting. She thought that although he looked very strong on the surface, he was actually a man who would consider her feelings. But, too, his actions now made her doubt that, too. Jean-D looked down at her from above, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer point, too. Not bad. You can counterattack so eloquently when facing me, but when facing those people, you are like a fool, allowing them to humiliate you? Do you want to be scolded by them just because your ex-fiancé is present, too? He was so angry that he gnashed his teeth. When he was walking through the corridor, he'd heard the movements in the private room and stopped to listen in on their conversation point, too. Since he had given her the identity of Jean-D's woman, he would stand up for her no matter what point, too. He was such a protective, possessive, and overbearing person. He liked to raise his pet to be bold and lawless. He would watch her run amok and then laugh as he cleaned up everything for her point, too. But what about her? She was his woman and his pet. Every word she said to endure and mock herself seemed to trample his pride under her feet point, too. She was clearly so arrogant in front of him. So why did she become listless in front of those people? 2. He couldn't take it, too. Am I too indulgent with you? Is that why you're so bold in front of me? Or do I need to take a lesson from your ex-fiancé? What kind of methods did he use to make you so humble in front of him that you don't even look him in the face? Her expression suddenly went cold. She felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured over her head. Her heart, which had just warmed up, was now suffocating and aching point, too. This kind of heart-wrenching feeling was something she had never experienced before. It made her feel even more heartbroken than when she had been humiliated by Chunzi. Why? Could it be that because Jean-D had descended from the sky time and time again and saved her like a hero, she had developed an incurable good impression of him? 2. She had even allowed herself to think that if she continued to be with Jean-D like this, too, perhaps he would finally be able to bring her happiness, too. But his words just now had awakened her from this fantasy point, too. She looked at his determined profile point, too. The expression on her face gradually faded and turned cold. I'm sorry, I won't treat you that way in the future, she said, looking down point, too. Her tone was full of respect and humility point, too. She was clearly apologizing, but this only seemed to fan the flames of his anger point, too. This woman, he inwardly shouted in frustration point, too. Sir, your order is ready. 2. The waiter's knock on the door had come just in time point, too. Jean-D managed to hold back his anger. So AI did not say anything and sat obediently next to him. She was obedient beyond belief, and he hated her like this. He was so depressed by her new demeanor that he was overtaken by an overwhelming urge to drink point, too. I'll have that bottle of 82 Mao Tai. It was the most expensive wine on the list. The waiter came back with the bottle point, too. Jean-D poured out glass, and when the aroma of the wine floated up, he saw her frown point, too. The smell of the wine was very strong point, too. So she wanted to pretend to be obedient? Well, he'd see just how obedient she could be, too. Drink, he commanded point, too. He placed a glass of wine, filled nearly to the brim, in front of her point, too. She did not have much tolerance for alcohol, and even white wine made her drunk after just a couple of sips. But she said nothing. She just picked up the glass and drank point, too. Immediately, she choked and started coughing. But Jean-D's expression did not soften at all. Drink all of it, too. He gave the order coldly. He was the patron, so she had no right to say no. Even though the wine was like a liquid fire that burned in her throat all the way to her stomach, she did not hesitate at all and drank all of it as fast as she could point, to. As she put the empty wine glass back on the table, Jean-D smiled coldly and picked up the wine bottle to pour another glass for her point, too. After drinking the first glass, her face was already red. She frowned tightly and shook her head from time to time, as if trying to clear her head point, too. Her lips, which had just been kissed red by him, were pouting slightly point, too. His eyes darkened at the sight, and his Adam's apple moved slightly point, too. Keep drinking, he snarled point, too. She knew that Jean-D was trying to upset her, and it was working point, too. She'd open her heart to him, It would take a while for her to close it up again, too. Her heart hurt, but that was good. She needed to let herself feel hurt, so eventually she would feel completely disappointed and despairing towards Jean D. In the end, if things continued as they were going, she would be able to give up on Jean D, just like she'd given up on Chenzi.2. There was nothing good in men. 2. They only knew how to bully her. She picked up the wine glass and drank another big gulp according to his instructions. She felt the alcohol melting into her veins and her stomach. She was dizzy. 2. The table disappeared and reappeared in front of her eyes. She rubbed her eyes with her hands, realizing that she'd spilled alcohol all over them. 2. It hurt so much that her tears kept falling. 2. Jean D couldn't believe her stubbornness. 2. If she'd had 1/10 of this pride in the other room, just now, she would not have let herself be bullied to such an extent. 2. He'd made it clear that she held the title of Jean D's woman, a position to be envied by everyone, but still, she refused to say it aloud. 2. Why did being his woman make her feel so embarrassed? 2. He frowned and sipped his wine. The little woman next to him gradually stopped moving. He supported his chin with his hand and looked at her from time to time. 2. Then he saw the tears streaming down her face. 2. He'd been bringing the glass of wine to his mouth for another sip, but his hand froze in midair when he saw that she was crying. 2. At first, prompted by the alcohol, she'd been shedding just a few tears. But now her head was so occupied by drunkenness, and her tears flowed like a running tap, all the grievances she had suffered tonight finally coming out. 2. She seemed to have finally found a way to vent her feelings. 2. At first, she was crying silently. 2. But gradually, her tears turned into a wailing cry. 2. All she could see in front of her was Jean D's exquisite and handsome face. She was so angry that she raised her hand and slapped him. 2. That first time they met, she had already been drunk. 2. He suddenly remembered how she had been then. She behaved so badly when she was drunk, too. When she threw her first slap, he grabbed her wrist and glared at her angrily. 2. But the drunk could ignore all his anger. She raised her other hand and slapped him from the other side. 2. Here he was, the CEO of King's Group, being slapped by a woman in a private dining room. If Bien Inoa and the others found out about this, what would happen, too? Without thinking, he grabbed her other wrist and pressed her down into the mahogany-carved chair. 2. The chairs here were very spacious. The 2 chairs were side by side and could almost be used as a small single bed. 2. He used one hand to hold her wrists above her head and the other hand to pinch her chin, forcing her to look at him. Woman, don't think that I won't do anything to you just because you're drunk. 2. This time, she didn't dodge or struggle. She just looked into his eyes quietly, and bean-sized tears rolled down from the corners of her eyes one by one. 2. The wetness in his palm made him feel inexplicably irritated. 2. He leaned close to her face and threatened, "If you keep crying, I'll kiss you." 2. But this threat was of no use to her, and she just struggled free to slap him again. 2. "If you dare to kiss me, I'll bite you too." Her voice was thick with drunkenness. It was clearly an angry roar, but to his ears, it sounded like a little woman acting coquettishly too. However, at this moment, the sobbing suddenly started crying even louder, too. He frowned and covered her mouth, but she just bit his palm like an animal. 2. He did not say anything and just let her bite him. After a moment, too, she suddenly let go of his palm. Her eyes, which had been washed by her tears, looked at him clearly. Her hoarse voice sounded aggrieved. 2. "Jean D, what right do you have to treat me like this, too?" Jean D's heart jumped in his chest. He didn't know how to answer. 2. She cried and glared at him, continuing to question him. 2. "Even my parents have never criticized me like this before. What right do you have to treat me this way? It's true, I don't want to let myself be bullied by those people. When I see Chenzi and Zhuyin flaunting their airy right under my nose, I wish I could crush them right under my feet, but I just don't have the power to do that. The Chen family is too influential, and the Zhuo family has nothing. I have nothing. I know that you're trying to help me, but you're still a man, and men can't be trusted. I just can't allow myself to start relying on you. How do I know you won't be like Chinzi and leave me for someone else once you get tired of me? 2. Hearing Chinzi's name on AI's lips, Jean D grew angry. Point 2. He grabbed her chin and snarled, "Don't compare me to that man, too. Can you guarantee me that you're so different from him? You may praise me to the heavens now." So did he, but can you promise me you'll continue to treat me this way in the future? How do I know you won't just leave me the moment someone new and exciting comes along? 2. Her eyes sparkled with determination. Jean D was started being asked such a straightforward question. Point 2. He fell silent. It was true. He couldn't give her love, so naturally, he couldn't tell her what she wanted to hear. Point 2. See? All men are the same. I guess I never had a chance, but I can't say I'm surprised. What happened to Jean D's woman? Was the title meaningless? I never accepted it because I knew if I never did, I wouldn't feel hurt even if you did end up leaving me. You have no right to criticize me, Jean D. You're no better than Chan Z. 2. She fell silent as he reached out and covered her lips with his hand. Point 2. He held it so long that her face started to turn red because she couldn't breathe. Finally, he removed his hand, bit her lower lip, and enunciated each word as he said, 2. I'll say it one more time. Don't compare me to a man like Chun Zi, too. Even if what she said was true, she could not treat him like this forever. Point 2. But even if he couldn't promise her what she wanted, he would never behave like Chun Zi. If they broke up in the future, they would do it peacefully, and he would never allow anyone to humiliate her. Point 2. Anyone. She was still in pain from his bite. She cried and groaned. Point 2. His body was burning hot. He had long lost his appetite for the dishes on the table. She felt herself being carried by him. Stop pestering me. 2. He unbuttoned her shirt. 2. She fainted. Everything that had happened in the private room after that was like a dream. The next day, she was carrying a book for the art exhibition on her way to school, and her head was still a little dizzy from the night before. Point 2. When AI woke up in the middle of the night last night, she'd been lying on a bed in the back of the restaurant. She was wearing a neat pair of pajamas she didn't recognize, and it seemed that, at some point, she'd taken a bath. Point 2. Did she and Jean D really, too? Every time she thought of the scene she'd made last night, she shook her head hard in disbelief. She really couldn't handle her alcohol. Point 2. No, next time, she definitely would think twice before she drank. Point 2. I'm sorry, she suddenly cried out. Point 2. A student she didn't recognize had run into her and knocked her over in the hall. She was about to say that it was okay, but they just looked at her face blankly and left in a hurry. Point 2. She frowned. Point 2. Was it just her imagination, or were people looking at her strangely this morning? 2. Did something happen? 2. She picked up her phone and opened Baidu, thinking that scandal from a few days ago had probably caused a stir again, too. But then she saw what the first title on Baidu's hot search list was. Point 2. The top socialite in Binhai City's secret meeting with financier has been exposed. 2. Her heart skipped a beat, and she hurriedly found a deserted hallway and clicked on the top page. Point 2. There was an audio clip attached to the article. As soon as she clicked play, she heard her own voice ring out. Point 2. It was the recording of the conversation she and Jean D had had at the Green Leaf, too. This conversation was obviously taken out of context. Not long after her own, she heard Jean D's magnetic voice ring out. Point 2. Your acting is so good. Why don't I invest in a TV series for you to play with, too? The tone of a cynical financier. She scrolled down, and sure enough, the page was filled with abusive comments. Point 2. Shameless B asterisk TCH, WH asterisk RE, SL asterisk T. The insults were endless. She took a few glances and immediately closed the page. Point 2. Forget it, she told herself. Out of sight, out of mind, too. Now that things had come to this, she didn't have time to feel hurt. She could only allow herself to feel anger, so she could get back at whoever had done this to her. Point 2. She took a deep breath, adjusted the expression on her face, and then continued her walk across campus. Point 2. This time, the closer she got to the teaching building, the more obvious the mocking gazes were. There were even people who sneered right in front of her and called her cheap, loud enough for her to hear. Point 2. She showed them only her indifferent. Point 2. When the instructor arrived, he pulled her out of the classroom with an embarrassed look. Point 2. Well, he said gently. The school curriculum hasn't been very busy recently. Actually, I suggest that you go home and rest for a while before coming back to school. How does that sound, too? She lowered her head and didn't say anything. Despite his gentle tone, the instructor's facial expression had an ugly twist to it. Actually, there are some rumors they're spreading around the school about you. The administration feels that this kind of news has a bad influence on the reputation of Benhai University. If you can take the initiative and apply for suspension, the administration can provide you with a certain degree of support and help guarantee that you get your graduation certificate. But if the situation continues to worsen, too, the instructor's meaning was clear. So AI was supposed that even if she didn't apply for suspension, she would probably be expelled from the university in the end. Point two. She did not have any particular attachment to this school. It was just that she had put so much hard work into the art exhibition, managing it every step of the way ever since her first year, too. Her own hard work. All she wanted was to finish the art exhibition before leaving. Point two. I can apply for suspension, or I could drop out, but not yet, too. What did you say, too? The art exhibition that Professor Ho put me in charge of is almost finished. I have to arrange everything before I can leave. But until then, I promise you I'll try my best not to cause any trouble for the school. Please rest assured, too. So I wasn't a particularly good student, and she didn't stand out to teachers. Point two. Her grades were average, and she showed no special strength in any particular subject. Although her attendance was perfect, she seldom spoke in class discussions. Point two. Many people called her a hypocrite behind her back, especially now that this news had come out. Point two. The instructor obviously felt the same way. Point two. I spoke to Professor Ho personally this morning. They told me that you will no longer be in charge of the art exhibition. Two. Hearing this, AI was stunned. She looked up and saw the ridicule written all over the instructor's face. After such a scandal, you can't honestly expect that Professor Ho would allow you to continue managing the exhibition. That wouldn't reflect well on Professor Ho at all. Zui Yunyun has been put in charge in your place. I suggest that you take my advice and apply for... Hey, where are you going? Zwa AI too. Two. Zwa AI showed promise when she made paintings in primary school. But after that, her results were mediocre. Point two. Later on, when Zuinyun joined the family, Zuinyun said that she had never learned to draw as a child. Hearing this broke Zwa Tianhao's heart. He let her and AI go to the painting class together. Zwa Yunyun's first painting was absolutely stunning. Point two. The teacher of the painting class did not know whether she was sincere or just trying to please with Tianhao. When Zwa Tianhao's secretary drove to pick them up from school in the evening, the teacher kept praising Zwa Yunyun, saying that she was a rare genius. Point two. Zwa Tianhao was delighted at the news. That night, he bought a 3-layer cake for them to celebrate. Point two. Zwa AI, on the other hand, became the useless sister who had been pampered since she was young. In the end, she became Zwa Yunyun's foil. When she was young, Zwa AI didn't realize that Zwa Yunyun was scheming and showing off to impress their father. Zwa Tianhao scolded her Zwa AI often, but she'd always just assumed that she deserved it. Zwa Yunyun was the good sister, and so she got the praise. It had all seemed perfectly naturally to young Zwa AI. Point two. She'd so looked forward to having a sister. Point two. But later on, this good sister would smile like an angel while she stabbed her in the heart. Point two. She always felt that she was alone in her family. Point two. But Professor Ho was the first person to discover that she too had talent. Point two. Professor Ho had taken AI's painting and hung it up on the wall, telling the rest of the class too. She was the most talented student in the class. Point two. She felt recognized for the first time in her life. From that moment on, she decided to apply herself to her work in Professor Ho's class like she'd never applied herself to her work before. Point two. For the sake of Professor Ho's art exhibition, she had worked hard for over a month writing the project proposal and research report. Point two. Even her graduation thesis had been completed ahead of time. Point two. When she rushed to Professor Ho's office, Professor Ho's face was filled with an unfamiliar anger. He threw the thesis that she had sent over yesterday at her feet with all his might. So AI To think that I've always thought so highly of you. Even though you didn't do well in your professional class, I also thought that you had talent. I was biased to let you design this art exhibition. How could you do such a thing? The development of art movements in traditional Chinese painting. You didn't even change the title or the topic. You directly plagiarized your sister's thesis. 2. She was stunned. Plagiarized? Where is this coming from? 2. I don't care about this silly scandal everyone seems to be talking about. As your teacher, all I care about is your scholarship and willingness to learn. I always thought that you were making progress. No, your educational foundation may not have been as sturdy as many of the other students, but you were always willing to put into the effort to do better. How could you do something so careless? 2. This thesis was indeed written by her. She'd researched it extensively for months. 2. She'd hardly even left the house while she was working on a 2. Even when Chinzi came to ask her out, she didn't go out. She wanted to defend herself. But just as she was about to speak, a familiar voice sounded in the room. Professor, don't blame my sister. She was so busy with all the news being written about her during that period of time. She never looked like she'd gotten enough sleep. I think my sister must just be worn out. That's why she did such a thing. It was a moment of confused exhaustion. Please don't blame her. Give her another chance, too. I was speechless. 2. She knew perfectly well what Zui Yinyan was doing. 2. At that time, I had still been living in the Zhou family home. Zui Yinyan must have gone into her room to copy the complete thesis when she wasn't around. 2. She'd been gone for 2 days doing work for the art exhibition. Zui Yinyan must have done it then, too. Then, she gave her copied thesis to the professor before Zui could, too. Zui had lived under the same roof as Zui Yinyan for many years. This sort of behavior wasn't new to her. If she'd allowed herself to get dragged down and hurt feelings, she would not have been able to get to where she was today. 2. After she figured out what must have happened, her heart, which had been pounding, started to calm down. Her face looked indifferent. 2. Professor Ho really valued her talent. He had thought that she would reflect and apologize for her actions. Unexpectedly, he did not say a word. She squatted down to pick up her thesis, turned around, and walked out. Professor Ho was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Stop right there, too. Her footsteps paused, but she did not turn around. 2. After doing such a shameful thing, you don't feel any remorse, too? She turned her head back bit by bit and looked at Zui Yinyan's smug expression indifferently. Then, she sneered at the both of them. 2. If the professor thinks what he saw is the truth, then there's nothing I can say to change his mind. It's just that I haven't done anything wrong, so there's nothing for me to feel remorse about. I wanted to see the art exhibition through to the end, but if you want Zui Yinyan to be in charge now, so be it, too. She thought she'd found her passion in the art exhibition. 2. Even without the support of the Zhou family, she thought she'd still have this. She thought she was going to finish the art exhibition and then work hard to support both herself and her mother. 2. But today, her dream was shattered. 2. No matter how indifferent her smile was, the feeling of her heart being cut by a knife did not diminish at all. Step by step, she walked out of the office that she'd spent so much time in over the past 2 years. Then, she grabbed her bag and walked towards her other teacher's office. 2. Even if she dropped out of such a school, she would not have any lingering feelings. Outside the door of the teacher's office, 2, a woman who looked familiar to Zhou crossed her arms as if she was waiting for someone. 2. Just as she was about to open the door, recognition flashed through her mind. 2. It's you, too. Don't get me wrong, I just don't want to get myself involved in this mess. Besides, anyone would realize that the only person who had the chance to put the recording pen in your bag that day was me. 2. I'm not stupid, and I don't want to be used as a gun. I just want to make money. Someone instructed me to do this. I don't need to tell you who it is, but you should understand. 2. Young Mimi wasn't stupid. Zui Yinyan hadn't left any evidence that day. She'd wiped away all traces of her fingerprints from the recording pen. 2. But young Mimi's fingerprints were still there. Now that the recording had been released, she would be held criminally responsible. 2. If Zui used the recording pen as evidence, there's no way in 1,000 years she'd be able to explain why her fingerprints were on it. 2. This is why she'd been looking for Zwa AI. Point 2. There was a saying, the enemy of the enemy is a friend. 2. Zwa AI. Let's work together, she said abruptly. Point 2. How much did you take from Zwa Yunyan? Zwa AI replied. Point 2. Ah, 2. A student like you wouldn't do this kind of thing for no reason, right? She said very calmly. Point 2. She sounded so certain that young Mimi couldn't help but feel a twinge of guilt. Point 2. But Zwa AI's attitude could work in young Mimi's favor. Point 2. It was enough payment for me, being from such a poor, rural area, to get a special enrollment and a year's tuition. It may not be worth mentioning in your eyes, but it's very important to me, young Mimi said. Point 2. Young Mimi had met many hypocritical people like the Point 2, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she smiled and admitted that she was indeed in it for the money. Point 2. The thing is, I don't have any money, said apologetically. Although you may think that I'm very glamorous, I'm actually completely broke. My family cut me off, too. She was very honest. Young Mimi was stunned. She hadn't expected that the #1 socialite in Binhai City would be like this, and her words were unexpectedly sincere. Point 2. Don't worry. I didn't really want to ask you for money. I just wanted to distance myself from you. The money Zui Yunyan gave me wasn't worth it. If I end up taking the blame for her crime, the gains won't make up for the losses. When I put the recording pen in your bag, I also put my own recording pen in it. It should be out of battery by now. But here, this is a charger. You should be able to find the backup recording of the meal when we're discussing our arrangement. Zui Yunyan cut so much of the audio. I think there must be some content in there that can clear you, she said. Point 2. Such a smart person, as one would expect from a scholarship student. Point 2. Thank you, 2. You're welcome. But I still have one more question to ask you. Are you really going to drop out of school, 2? So I was stunned for a moment. Because of young Mimi's interruption, her emotions had actually calmed down. Her mind was clear. Point 2. So AI smiled. But now I don't want to drop out of school, 2. How could she let Zui Yunyan do as she pleased here? Even if Zui AI ended up leaving, she was going to drag Zui Yunyan down with her first. Point 2. Young Mimi also smiled. I don't know much about the grudges between you two, but that woman, Zui Yunyan, I really can't stand her. Okay then, goodbye, 2. Goodbye. Point 2. Although young Mimi asked her to use the recording to clear her name, she was secretly glad that Zui Yunyan only intercepted that short segment. There were a few subtle points in that recording that could be used to deduce Jean D's identity. Although Jean D had made an appearance in the restaurant last night, she was confident that he wouldn't have been happy about being exposed in the media. She hadn't even recognized him the first time she met him. 2. It was absolutely impossible for her to tell who he was. 2. If Jean D found out that she had caused such a disaster, she was afraid that he would be furious. Point 2. She still had to clean up her own mess. She thought that as long as she did not cause trouble for Jean D, they could part on good terms in the future. Point 2. As long as she did not start to rely on him too much. Point 2. Then she would be able to keep her heart safe. Point 2. With this thought in mind, she held the recording pen and walked towards a job fair not far from campus. Point 2. Miss, are you looking for a job? 2. She gritted her teeth and took out her last bit of savings. No, I'm here to recruit. 2. May I know the position you're hiring for? 2. About 30 years old, 1.8 meters tall, with a magnetic voice and money. For as long as I need him, 2. She wore sunglasses and a hat to disguise her appearance, but still attracted a lot of onlookers. Point 2. Upon hearing her request, 2. Even more people looked at her. Point 2. Suddenly, there are a lot of men who met the conditions she listed crowding around her. Point 2. Miss, look at me. I am not bad-looking, am I? The voice was too thin. Point 2. Miss, I am strong and healthy, and will certainly be able to complete the work. His voice was too silvery, not magnetic at all. Point 2. She shook her head to both offers. 2. After passing on almost 30 men, the crowd began to disperse. Point 2. She hadn't expected it to be so difficult to find a man with a voice similar to Jean D's. Point 2. She knew that Jean D's voice was quite pleasant to the ear, but she hadn't realized until now just how unique it was. Point 2. At this rate, the media would release the rest of the information before she could carry out her plan. By the time they found out about Jean D, she would be too late to forget it. She needed to hurry, too. She glanced at the last man and pointed at him with her slender finger. You'll do, too. The man was stunned and didn't say a word. Point two. So she didn't even need to hear his voice, too. From now on, she began to. From now on, your name is Jean Yuching. You're a nouveau riche from another province. We had a meal at the Green Leaf and made some jokes. When we meet the media later, you'll do as I say. I can give you a good amount of money after we've finished. But if you dare to say a word to anyone after the matter is done, too. So what AI took off her sunglasses and looked at him with a cold smile. Point two. To tell you the truth, the man in my news is a member of the underworld. Do you know how they treat whistleblowers, too? The man's face suddenly turned pale. He shook his head. Point two. That's fine. I don't think you want to know. As long as you listen to what I say and do as I say, you can take the money and do whatever you want with it. Do you understand, too? Two. So AI walked back to Benhai University on the arm of the new Mr. Jean. Two. The entrance to Benhai University was already jammed with journalists, news vans, and photographers. Point two. Even she was stunned. Point two. That wasn't right. The news hadn't even been sent out yet. Were these reporters clairvoyant? Two. She took her arm and squeezed through the crowd with Mr. Jean. Point two. And yet, these reporters who never used to leave her alone didn't even look at her. They all just kept pressing forward into the crowd. Point two. So AI was dumbfounded. Point two. What was going on? Awakening her from her daze, she heard young Mimi's voice beside her. So AI, come over here, too. She felt her sleeve being pulled and followed obediently. It wasn't easy for her to pass through the crowd, but when she did, what she saw was, AI, what are you doing? She said. Point two. Young Mimi looked at the man in a suit behind her, puzzled. Point two. So AI leaned on the man with a smile, looking very flirtatious. Point two. I'm announcing the truth. He is Mr. Jean from the news. It's not good to drag this out for too long. I'm planning to explain it to the reporters at a press conference. Two. So you're confusing me, too. Young Mimi looked at her with a shocked expression and then looked at the man next to her. Point two. So AI was even more puzzled. How did these reporters even know about the news? I haven't even given the press release yet. So how did they know to come here? But I guess it's for the best. I'll just take this opportunity to clarify it all at once, too. Clarify what, too? Oh, to clarify the joke that Mr. Jean and I said in the recording on the news, of course, too. She reflexively answered the question and only felt that something was wrong halfway through her sentence. Point two. That voice, too. It was clearly a man's voice, too. Her body suddenly froze, and she did not even dare to turn her head back. She held on to the Mr. Jean that she had hired and wanted to leave, too. But she was completely trapped in the crowd of reporters. Point two. There was no way forward, no way back. She saw young Mimi's terrified face, too, and her blood went cold. Point two. So what AI? Who's a Mr. Jean, too? The man's voice suddenly became very soft. The familiar magnetic voice from her memory seemed to contain some sort of magic that made her hold her breath as she quietly listened to it. Point two. She swallowed her saliva and was about to speak, but at this moment, Mr. Jean, who hadn't spoken until now, seemed to realize that this was already the beginning of his work. Point two. He started talking nonstop. Point two. My surname is Jean. My name is Jean Yuching. Previously, when I was having dinner with Miss Wa at the Green Leaf, I made some jokes during the meal. It's not true. I heard that this recording caused a storm on the internet, so I specially came to, Miss Swa, why are you covering my mouth, too? She wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Point two. Why was Jean D looking at her like that? Two. His gaze grew colder and colder. Even she, whose back was facing him, could feel the cold air rising from the soles of her feet, as if he was going to freeze her whole body with no more than a look. Point two. Jean Yuching, huh? Two. She lowered her head and looked at his pair brown calf, leather handmade shoes. She slowly turned around to face him. Point two. She didn't dare raise her head, but it was useless to keep looking down. Point two. She could only slowly look up from the bottom of his pants, inch by inch. Finally, she reached his face and saw a mocking smile on his exquisite features. Point two. It was as if he was saying, too, really, you made all this up? Too. She was silent. Point two. She could not make it up anymore. The big boss was here. How could she still dare to show off? 2. This, actually, she stuttered. Point 2. Jean Yuching, right? Just as she started to speak, Jean D quietly interrupted her and looked at the man next to her. Point 2. It was the first time that Jean Yuching had faced so many cameras, and it brought out some hidden pride within him. His back was straight, and he really did look like a nouveau riche. Point 2. Jean Yuching is me. I am Jean Yuching. What can I do for you two? I'm sorry. Can you leave us alone for a moment? Jean D's tone dripped honey. Point 2. But Jean Yuching didn't care how polite he was. He set his jaw stubbornly. He even reached out and put his arm around the AI's shoulder. Point 2. Miss Swa is my friend. I will not leave her to bear all this alone. 2. He even had a rather heroic expression on his face. Point 2. When he saw this clown caressing Swa AI's fair and slender arm, the smile on Jean D's face instantly disappeared. His sinister gaze was terrifyingly cold. Point 2. Swa AI couldn't think of anything to say to defend herself. She could only say in her heart, I'm sorry, Mr. Jean, too. After being stared at by Jean D like this for about a minute, Jean Yuching could not help but shudder. Only then did he realize that this person before him was probably some big shot. Point 2. How could an ordinary person have such an aura? He started to feel afraid. Point 2. Actually, that I'm not. He stammered. Point 2. Daniel, get someone to bring this Mr. Jean to another place to rest. 2. Jean de-emphasized the name, Mr. Jean, very heavily. Point 2. Not long after, Mr. Jean, who didn't dare protest, was taken away by Daniel. Point 2. So AI was left alone with Jean D. All she wanted to do was find a hole to hide into. Is the black card I gave you not enough? Even if you hire a stunt double, you should find a higher class one. Don't you think? It's what AI. 2. The surrounding reporters and photographers held their breaths and hung onto every word they said. Point 2. When they heard the words black card, their bodies trembled with excitement. Point 2. Oh my God, did he said black card? 2. There were only a handful of people in the world who had such a black card. It was said that if they took it to Boeing, even they would swipe at. Point 2. So what AI did not know what the black card was, nor did she plan to use it. But now that she'd been caught having one too, she could only lower her head and wring her fingers, not daring to say a word. However, it's rare for AI to be so thoughtful. She knows that I don't like to face cameras, so she came up with this idea. Tell me, AI, how should I reward you for being so understanding? 2. The more she listened to his words, the more terrified she felt. The more gentle he was, the more she felt that she would die a miserable death in the end. Point 2. There's really no need for a reward. She laughed hollowly. Point 2. No, there must be a reward. If I didn't give you a reward, then I wouldn't be a very good boyfriend now, would I? 2. His thin lips parted slightly. He used an extremely gentle and doting expression to say these affectionate words. Point 2. There was a moment of shocked silence in the huge crowd. Point 2. Even though these reporters had been contacted by Daniel in advance, all he told then was that the CEO of King's Group was going to be making an appearance. Point 2. They had no idea why he was going to be coming to this particular school. Point 2. But it didn't matter. The public was so curious about the mysterious big shot that the mere mention of the name Jean D in any paper would generate a year's sales overnight. Point 2. Compared to this, so what AI's news was too insignificant. Point 2. But 2. Had Jean D actually announced that what AI was his girlfriend in public? 2. Oh my God, what was going on? After a minute of silence, the crowd suddenly exploded. The reporters all clamored for his attention. Oh my God, hello. Are you Jean D of King's Group? You've gone so long without making a public appearance. Why are you here at Ben Hai University today? Is it for Miss Swa too? Excuse me, Mr. Jean. Was it you who had dinner with Miss Swa at the Greenleaf the other day? Who was that other Mr. Jean just now, too? Mr. Jean, I heard that the project of Ben Hai City's Guanhai Tower Resort will be finished soon. Is your appearance here today a publicity stunt for the company's new project? 2. Mr. Jean, how old are you this year? Is Miss Swa your mistress? Why did you choose a scandal-ridden woman to be your mistress? 2. And so on, too. They asked all kinds of questions, too. One after another came their way. Point 2. No matter how many times IAI had experienced scenes like this, she still couldn't get used to a point two. She wasn't good at explaining, but in front of the media, the quieter she was, the more words they could put in her mouth. She needed to say something point two. If she didn't, they would speculate about everything and assume the worst point two. Between this and Zhuo Yunyun's scheming, she couldn't even live a moment of her life in peace, too. She understood that Jean D wanted to keep a low profile, and she didn't want to give him any trouble, too. She lowered her head and bit her lower lip. She knew that she should her best to maintain the cool and calm facade of the #1 socialite in Binhai City Point 2. But, don't endure it, too. Jean D's breath was warm in her ear point 2. You are my woman and have the right to be willful and arrogant. You don't have to pretend to be a lady in front of them, a socialite. So, you are you. By my side, you could be the freest version of yourself, too. The bag in her hand fell to the ground with a thud point 2. Her mind went totally blank in that moment point 2. The expression on her face could not be controlled at all. Jean D's voice seemed to have a kind of magic. It bewitched and seduced her point 2. It made her throw all the malice that these people held toward her right back at them point 2. She decided to fight back with all her strength, too. Hey, don't be pushy. I asked my question first. Miss Swa, please answer me first, too. Who's pushy? You're the pushy one. I was the one who asked the question first. Miss Swa, may I ask what relationship is with Mr. Jean? Mistress? Girlfriend? You're his mistress, aren't you? Too. So AI was smiling. It was different from before. It was as if she was a phoenix, reborn from the fire. It was a brand new smile point, too. Miss Swa, too. For the first time, Jean D felt that supporting his woman was actually a very pleasant thing. Seeing her now, he couldn't help but soften his gaze point, too. He might not be able to give her love, but he could give her the whole world. This was his promise, and he wouldn't break it for as long as he lived point, too. So what AI suddenly turned around. He quietly waited for her to turn the situation upside down, but all she did was stand there smiling at him point, too. He was stunned by that smile for a minute. When he came back to his senses, she had already wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed his lips. His eyes widened in shock. They just happened to meet her smiling eyes. A mischievous smile appeared in that pair of beautiful eyes. He felt her sharp canine teeth biting hard on his lips. It was as if she was taking revenge for his previous injuries. He frowned. Just as he was about to retaliate, her lips left his. She stood on tiptoe, and her voice rang in his ears. You chose this for yourself. I hope you don't regret it in the future. I have never been a vegetarian, too. It seemed he had liberated a mischievous and willful beast from within her. But what did she mean she'd never been a vegetarian? Was she going to eat him, too? Jean D wasn't afraid of anything, let alone a beast. Especially a beast as small as this one. He might as well keep it around and watch to see what it might do next point, too. So he smiled, arrogantly and domineeringly. No matter how fierce the beast, it can't escape its master. I'm sorry, Miss Swa, but I'm your master, too. Haven't you ever seen a Meng tiger swallow a human? Maybe I'll lick your bones clean. After taking off her demure disguise, she exuded a kind of evil, a mischievous, willful, and yet naive aura surrounding her point, too. She was like a little devil, making you love and hate her at the same time, even if you didn't want to point, too. Try it if you dare. He bent down and bit her earlobe, not caring about the watching eyes of the crowd, pausing between each word point, too. Her whole body stiffened, and her face instantly turned red. At this moment, Jean D suddenly grabbed her around her slender waist, lifting her up to carry her in his arms point, too. Hey! She was so shocked that her voice trembled point, too. There were sighs from the crowd, but Jean D didn't seem to hear them point, too. Daniel was standing in front of the car waiting for them. So AI heard Jean D say something to him before getting in the car point, too. Everything else should be handled according to what I said before, too. Before she could hear Daniel's reply, she was stuffed into the back seat like luggage, too. She pulled her skirt down desperately, afraid that the crowd might photograph her point, too. After getting into the car, she went from embarrassment to anger point, too. Gene D, how could you do this? There's so many people here, and you let me be naked in front of them. That could stain my reputation for the rest of my life, too. Gene D hadn't been thinking about that. As she said this, he looked down at her chiffon skirt, which had ridden up above her buttocks, and his eyes instantly darkened. Point two. You're right, too. She thought that he would ask Daniel to do something about it, too. But she hadn't expected him to say, too. Daniel, I'll need you to collect the memory cards from the cameras later. But don't destroy them. Save them for me, too. She was so angry that she almost spat out a mouthful of blood at him. Point two. In the Chun family study, Chunzi sat in front of the computer, watching the live news stream, his face dark. Point two. A servant carried a tray of coffee into the study and was about to put it on Chunzi's table when he suddenly stood up. Point two. A whole cup of hot coffee spilled on his laptop keyboard. Point two. On the screen, the video was paused. It's what AI, smiling and kissing Gene D. Point two. Chunzi's eyes darkened. Young master, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry, too. The servant kept apologizing, but Chunzi didn't even look at him. He just turned around, picked up his windbreaker, and put it on. Point two. Before he walked out of the study, he stopped and suddenly said, just throw the computer away, too. As soon as Chunzi walked out of the Chun family's villa, he saw Zwinian get out a car parked out front. Point two. She ran so fast that her forehead was covered with a layer of sweat. The expression on her face was anxious. Point two. Good thing she was here. He had a score to settle with her, too. Z. She began. Point two. He looked at her coldly and got straight to the point. Was it you who did the recording, too? She looked at him in disbelief, and her eyes filled with tears. Point two. I know you don't like me, and I guess you would suspect me. So, I'm here to give you evidence. The person who framed my sister is not me, but someone else.